Okay, so I'm really excited to see many of you on here. Meryl and I are going to kind of go through what the artist residency application looks like, how you're going to apply when it opens in August, and we can answer some more specific questions about what some of the selection committee members are looking for. So um, just to start off, a lot of people ask, like, what is a residency with Akron Soul Train? And for those of you who might be new or just coming on, learning about us for the first time, we are a multidisciplinary residency program. So we support artists that are writers, performers, visual artists. And the term residency is interesting because it connotes for some people that we provide space to live and or studio space, but we don't at this time. In the future, that is our hope. But we ask that artists work from the comfort of their own home or studio space or gallery space for a month or longer, depending on how long you feel you need for a project. And then during your artist month is when you would be creating, and then we would pick a time for you to exhibit that work in our gallery space. If you're a visual artist, if you're a performing artist and you have a bigger project, we would find a partner organization to present that work. So, but we would be working with you to like equip you with the things that you need for the residency. So if you have always wanted to use a laser cutter, you don't have one, we will, help you find or locate one that you can use, that sort of thing. So that's part of what we do as supporters and administrators on your project for a residency. What we provide to an artist when they are selected for a residency, you get time because we provide a stipend of $1,000 for you to do the work, resources, recognition in the community and press. We do a press release for every show or every performance or everything that we do for our artists. There's opportunities to engage with the Akron community through your artwork, because we'll talk a little bit later about community engagement and the programming that you do around that. And then, of course, you become a member. One of the benefits is being an artist member for a year with us, and we are doing a lot of member programming and benefits for our artists and our members. And then we will support you administratively to try and find resources or collaborators for projects. Like if you really have always wanted to work with the Metro Parks, or you've always wanted to work with the Civic Theater, or you want to work with Summit Art Space, we try to make those connections for you so you don't have to do the legwork on some of those collaborations that you might build into your project. Maybe you already have them established, and that's fine too. We don't have to make the connection, but that is a benefit to having a residency with us. So let's say that you are selected as a resident artist. We would work with you to pick a month that you feel works the best for you to get a lot done. So maybe you really want to do January of 2025. Then we would select you as the artist in residence in that month of January. During your residency month, we ask that you take over our Instagram on only one day, just to talk about your process, share your studio, share your thoughts, things that help the community connect to the work that you're doing. So that's what that Instagram takeover it is. It's a way to make you accessible to our community through a digital platform. There are artists who don't use Instagram, don't have an Instagram account. They've had to create one for this specifically. But we can help artists who are not social media gurus do that Instagram takeover. So don't let that be a barrier to applying. One of the other things that you may do during that month is your community engagement. And as I mentioned, we will talk about that a little bit later, about what is community engagement and what does that mean for us. And then the last thing is the final product. What are you producing? Are you planning on making a zine you want to pass out? Are you doing an exhibition of work? Are you doing a performance? And those dates will occur at a different times. So you will not be a resident artist in January and showing in January. You will be a resident artist in January working, and maybe your show will be in March. And we will, again, so you have to think about when your availability is, because it will specify on the application, okay, these are the months when I'm available. And then we work from that to design what our exhibition season looks like. How are our artists selected? So there's an online application. We use Submittable. It is very easy. It opens August 1st and it closes September 30th. So you can go on in August, you can start your application, you can be reworking it until you hit that submit button. It does close at 11:59 p.m. on September 30th. And you don't want to wait until 11:59 to submit your application, because it does close at exactly that time. So even if you're in the middle of your application, it will close you out from submission. So try not to do that. We have a 7 to 10 member committee that reviews the applications, and they make the determination by the end of October. So you will know in early November whether or not you will be a resident artist for 2025. So we give you a little bit of time if you're a January resident to think about getting ready to prepare your work. Artists are notified first, and then we do a public celebration, which takes place in December, and it will be December 15th, Meryl, sometime around there. It'll be like the end of our show. So we do a celebration, we make an announcement, we have a little party to just kind of thank the previous residents and then usher in the new cohort.
December 13th.
December 13th is the public celebration. So here we have a main committee. They've been on our committee for a long time. They're going to stay on the committee, but here's just an idea of who's reviewing the work. So Arnie Tunstall is the director of galleries at the University of Akron. Jill Bacon-Madden, owner of Jilly's Music Room, and she is a board member. Stephen Tomasco is a photographer and also has done a residency with us. One member of Curated Storefront will be on our committee. We just have to confirm who that will be. And then Fran, who's a curator, she works at the Cummings Center for the history of psychology at University of Akron. And then we always have 2 to 3 guest jurors every year. We look for a community member. We pick some alums from the program. So we're still confirming those for this round, this cycle. But Sylvia Sykes is one of our guest jurors, and she was a resident artist last year. So just to give you an idea of the kind of individuals who are reviewing these applications. Main application sections. I want to talk about these because these are the bulk of the application. These are the narrative sections that you will need to develop before you apply. And we ask for an artist bio because we use that a lot in our press releases. We use it to post online quickly when we make the announcement. And so that you understand what the difference is, because some people don't know what the difference is between an artist statement and an artist bio. The bio is usually written in the third person, and it's kind of like a factual bio, like Peta Brooks attended Hiram College and graduated, in fine arts and as a sculptor, mixed media, whatever. It's this like very straightforward bio. The artist statement is really more about you and your philosophies around art, why you're creating art, things that move you to create art. So that's a little bit more personal, and it's more, do you want to give a shot at describing it, Meryl? I'm going to ask if I'm going to put Meryl on the spot here.
It's very much about like what you are doing in the content of your artwork. So the concepts behind it, your inspirations behind it, and like what it actually is.
Yeah, like maybe you're someone who's really moved by, I always use this example because I do love mushrooms and I love hunting mushrooms. So like I have an artist friend who writes his artist statement and says that he's an amateur mycologist. So just kind of an interesting way to talk about his art is through what he's passionate about. So this is more personal and it doesn't have to be in the third person. It can be you saying, I, PETA, love mushrooms. They're an undervalued part of our organic world or something like that. The big bulk of the application, of course, is the project proposal. And the project proposal is basically, how do you intend to utilize the residency if you are selected, and explaining your specific plans, your projects or your objectives during the residency period. You should outline any research, experimentation, or exploration you plan to undertake. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we're looking for, and that this will kind of help you understand what this proposal should look like. But the proposal should say something like, I, PETA Brooks, plan to produce, 3 new works of art that engage the audience using technology, whatever it is, but this is exactly what I'm going to be doing. You don't want it to be flowery. You don't want it to be overly poetic. You want it to be clear and concise so that we understand exactly what it is you want to do. I know that artists want to sometimes be verbose or just beautiful and flowery and explain something, but don't do that. Do it very just think scientifically about it. Just, this is what I'm doing with this, and here is why. Your community engagement program, we're going to talk about this because this is the thing that I think turns a lot of people away from applying, because it's really not that big of a deal, but I want to explain why we do it. And so we'll go into that a little bit, but basically it's one extra thing outside of whatever it is that you're doing. So if you're a performer and you say, I'm going to put on a concert, that concert cannot be your community engagement. That concert is your residency project. Your community engagement could be, I really want to show people how, I'm going to take them, or we're going to watch a video on trumpet production. I don't know, whatever it is, but the community engagement, it just helps the community understand or relate to the process or content of the project. And again, we're going to go into this in more detail. So what are we looking for? These are kind of the areas that the committee scores on. So creativity and originality. Everybody, of course, is creative and everybody's doing something new, but we are looking for artists who are pushing the boundaries of what they are already doing. So if you are an artist who is already doing prints of flowers, and that is what you put in your proposal, that isn't really going to show that you are trying to experiment, risk take, push yourself, because you're doing something that we can see on your website that you already do, or we can see in your social media that you already do. So risk taking, innovation, trying something new, using a material you've never used before. Those are the kinds of things that we are looking for, because part of our mission is to help artists grow. And we don't want you to be doing the same old, same old. We want you to be creative and use this opportunity to take a risk, to try something that maybe you've never done before, whether it works or not. It is about risk taking, and failure is a part of that, and that is okay. You grow. It's like risk, learn, grow. So creativity and originality, risk taking and innovation. Are you doing something new? Are you trying to use technology? Are you, I don't know, are you a dancer who's looking to get into, music creation? Are you a writer who wants to do installation? Are you, like, I don't know, what other things can you think of, Meryl? I'm just throwing out.
The artists that have kind of expanded past, like if they were a painter and then wrote a story about the painting, or it could be like if you're doing singular paintings and you want to make an immersive installation and you just never have had the funding to do something like that or the space to show it. like this is that opportunity.
Yeah. And then motivation and growth, which is, there is a question that asks, why are you applying to Akron Soul Train? Like, why is this residency going to help you on your creative path? And so that's one question you do need to think about, because that does play a part into why we might select somebody. If it seems like this really is going to help you develop a new concept, then, that's going to score a little higher. So, think about motivation. Why are you applying for this? Of course, money is always helpful, but we want to know that you're like really thinking about how this might propel you. And then the community engagement, which I'm going to let Meryl talk about now.
So the community engagement program, we talked about being separate from your actual project. It's a public program that benefits our community in some way. And we're really looking for community engagement program ideas that kind of allow collaboration. That's a big one. So if you're thinking about doing like a workshop or something like that, think about who you might, or like who we can maybe collaborate with. That's gonna score well with the committee. So the programs are typically scheduled during your residency month and not your exhibition or performance, but it is kind of flexible. And if you have a question about your idea or something, like we're here to talk about it even after you're selected. So there's some examples, and we'll talk about specific examples on the next slide, but like I like to think about going past a typical artist talk. Artist talks are great, but like, what can you do that's maybe a step further? Workshops and demonstrations are really helpful if you're working in a specific medium that maybe not a lot of people are kind of exposed to. Can you bring that to the community by doing a little workshop? Be creative, and think about those cross collaborative educational opportunities. The community engagement doesn't even necessarily have to do with like an art specific thing. We're always looking to engage with audiences that like might not be like looking at arts programming first. It's like we want a way to reach those people. So if you are creating an entire show about like insects, then we can totally do a science program or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be just arts based. And like I said, in the end of the slide, our staff, we will assist you with ideas, brainstorm, problem solve on all of this stuff.
Yeah, like before you submit your application, if you just want feedback or you want to tell us what your proposal is, we can quickly, we've done this long enough to know what might work or who we should partner with. So if you need ideas, you can reach out to Meryl or myself and we can meet with you to go over your proposal before you submit it. And I will say last year we had 6 or 7 people take us up on that. And we went through their whole proposal and almost 50% of them were selected. So we have a good track record. So I would encourage you to like try to meet with us so we can help you fine tune it once you get to that point. But so go ahead, Meryl.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So some examples of community engagements. I'll do the kind of bottom 3 first on this slide. Raja Bell Freeman is a poet, and she's also a very good example of kind of pushing past her practice as a poet. She had never shown visual art before in a professional setting, and she did an immersive light, sound, and drawing installation that went along with one of her poems. And for her community engagement, she did a art poetry workshop where she kind of broke down exactly how she writes her poetry. She has a very specific style, and did that with a group that was interested in learning poetry. In the middle of the slide, the emerald ash borer. So that was Keith Limley's project, was using these ash trees that were felled on his property and making sculptures out of them. And they were felled because of the emerald ash borer, which is an invasive species. So we contacted Mike Johnson, who's the chief of conservation at Summit Metro Parks, and they did a lecture on the emerald ash borer, on invasive species, and on like what the Summit Metro Parks are doing, what's happening environmentally. So this is kind of an example of pushing past just kind of regular arts programming into another field, and that we can draw kind of more audience to the work through that. On the right side, we have an upcoming project. So this is going to happen June 29th. So in a couple of weeks here, drawing bread and butter issues with Katie Butler. So Katie Butler's project is basically using kind of table settings and food settings to portray class structures, socioeconomic struggles. And so she is inviting people to bring their kind of bread and butter food items, not necessarily bread and butter, but kind of their everyday food items that you go to, and drawing them, talking about your bread and butter issues. So that's kind of like a political concept. And then it's also being turned into a food donation drive. So all the food that is brought will be donated to the Akron Canton Food Bank. So really cool example that even pushes past just our normal community engagement, because we're giving back. Let's see, on the top left, we have Sujatha Srinivasan, excuse me, and who was a classical Indian dancer, and she was interested in working with school kids. And so we contacted Miller South, and were able to set up a whole school assembly in which she talked about Bharatanatyam dance style, and invited their 8th grade dance class to come up and kind of learn some of the techniques with her. So that was a really, really cool community engagement. Next to her, Kayla Weinman wanted to share one of her techniques. So she set up at the gallery and did a ceramic stitchwork demo. We were also able to film this and create videos. So not only was she able to interact with people in person at the gallery, but we were also able to make it accessible online. Going across the page, we have Eva Polzer, Doggone It. And Eva was making, ended up making both dog and cat sculptures out of clay, and so did a workshop about their process and how they created these sculptures, and allowed people to actually use an actual clay body. And so the pieces that were made weren't going to be saved, they weren't going to be fired, but people could kind of get down in there and work with their hands to use the clay and create these animal sculptures. People brought photos of their pets, and it was really fun. We actually did 2 of them because it was so popular.
And that's another example where we collaborated. So this was actually held at Summit Art Space. We needed more room, a place where we could get messy.
Yeah.
And so they were more than happy to work with us, give us a space, and help cross promote that event, which I think is what made it so successful.
Yeah. The last one on this page on the right side, we had Michael Boyd Roman, and this was an interesting community engagement because it is directly tied to his project. He is a portrait artist and wanted to collect reference photos from people in the Akron community to use for this, for his project. And so we partnered with the East Avenue Market and Gallery, and were able to hold a photo shoot there. And so people signed up, and we had a photography session and they got their portraits taken, we are sending out their portraits to them so they get a photo, and then Michael is using them as reference photos for his images that he's creating for his residency. And so that really kind of grounds his actual project in the Akron community as well. So just some examples for you to think about.
Yeah, and there's so many more. These are just ones that have been fairly recent for us, so we just selected these, but there's just so many projects, collaborations that can be had based on we just recently this year also we have an artist, a theater artist who his work is based on intergenerational trauma. So Deborah was very interested in having a panel of speakers that were art therapists, artists that could talk about using art as a way to handle trauma. And so that was a really interesting panel discussion. So it's not really directly related to Deborah's work as a theater artist, but it's related to the content that she is building into her work. So that's where you can sort of think about how maybe your community engagement doesn't have to be exactly spot on about what you are doing. It can just be something that helps, like, help somebody understand basics, basic concepts in your work. So again, this is something that we've been doing for a while, and we can definitely help you if you're like, I just don't know what I might do. We can help you come up with something. So a lot of people say to me, well, I don't know where to start. Like, how can I write this? Or I know what my idea is, but I'm not sure how to put it down. So I just kind of made a quick little slide here. I've given this presentation at other places, and I think it's so easy. It's easy for me to think about it because I look at so many proposals, but where to start is just start with the what, the why, and the how. What are you creating? What are themes that come through your work? Universal themes that more than one person could relate to. What materials do you use? What excites you? What have you learned? So there's your what. So you can start by like creating, little postcards, post-it notes for yourself if you want to answer these questions. And then the why. Why is this important to you? Why is it important to share with others? Why did you choose the materials, your approach, or the presentation, like how you want to present the work? Why did you do those things? Why is that important to this work? And then you want to demonstrate value, like, why is this good for the community? So by answering those two questions and weaving that into your proposal, you're creating a strong emotive connection to your work. And that is what you want to do to be selected. And then how are you going to bring your ideas to life? How will you present your project, and what's the timeline? So I want to have my residency in January. It will take me a little extra time. I've already started approaching the library because I'm thinking about doing installations in between the bookshelves. I don't know, like whatever it might be. You want to kind of talk about the what, the why, and the how are you doing it. So on the other side, it's more like crafting your story. Once you have these bullet point lists, the what, the why, and the how, you want to craft your story. You want to develop, little chunks, like bite-sized pieces that you can sort of put together to like create a bigger, longer tale. And I always tell everyone, like, use everyday language and think of writing for someone who doesn't really understand the intricacies of art. So you don't have to use big art terms. There are going to be community members who might not be artists who will be looking at your proposal. You basically want someone to read it and understand what you're saying. Anybody off the street. So that's one thing that even in grant writing that I do is I give it my grant or my proposal to somebody that I haven't talked to about it, that doesn't know what I'm doing. And I ask them to read it and tell me, do they understand what I'm saying? And that has helped me so many times. So that's just something I would encourage you to do as you're crafting your story. Give it to somebody you've never talked to about it before and let them look it over. The community engagement, what kind of program would help the community relate to your work? That's all you need to think about. What could I do that would help somebody understand the content in my work? And then you want to organize your files to get them ready to submit. We do ask in the application, you need to submit samples of your work, and you don't need to submit samples of your work that is the project, because that's something you might be working on. But you can submit samples of previous work to give us an idea of the kind of work that you produce, the quality of the work, the kind of materials you use. So just know that your images don't have to be of the project. They just have to be images of your work. Maybe you have some installation shots like you've shown in a gallery before, and you have some installation shots. It'd be interesting for you to put that. If you're a performer, we definitely want to see video. You can send us a link to your YouTube page if you want. If you're a writer, you might submit just small passages, maybe some magazine you've been in, or if it's a longer novel, you do need to specify like where we should read, like what section should we read? Because obviously we're not going to have time to read an entire novel, but those are the kinds of things you want to think about. So you want to kind of get those ready. Capture high quality images of your artwork. In the day of smartphones, you can get totally a fine image of your work and submit that. So don't feel like you have to pay some photographer to capture your images. You can, and that's wonderful if you do, but you don't have to. Just don't lean it against something. Don't have a background that's busy. Just try to put it on a white wall with some nice lighting, and submit it so that we can see it nice and clear and crisp. And then I always say to create a budget for your project. We don't ask for a budget. We're not going to say, what are you going to do with this $1,000, right? But for you as an artist, you are creating work. So you do need to make sure that this is feasible for you within this $1,000 structure. Now, we will provide some additional funding for your community engagement, depending on what it is. So you don't necessarily have to build that into that $1,000. But you do need to think like, okay, I need $200 worth of paint. I want to pay myself $250 of that $1,000. And then I want to use some money to collaborate with somebody because I want them to create some graphic design piece for me or something, so like create a budget for your project so that you know if what you are proposing is feasible, because I don't want you to create some really wild project that makes you dig in deep to your own pockets to make it happen. And sometimes
apply for other funding.
and you can, yeah. And one thing you can do is if this can be part of a larger project. So you can use this as a stepping stone to something else. Or if you're looking for other funding, maybe this is just one part of it. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. We had an artist, Dominic Moore Dunson, who created a play, does a podcast and created a play called Incognito. And we were just one portion of the fundraising that he did to make that happen. And so he did a small thing with us, like a small performance with us, and not the big, huge performance that he did later on. So we were just like one little part of a larger fundraising effort for him. And that's something you can think about as well. So I think tips that I'm always telling people is like, you want to develop ideas that touch on like relatable themes. Because the judges, if they're moved by something, they're going to want to select that project. So you want it to be something that not everybody has to have relate to it, but that it's a universal theme. Like lots of people have been touched by whatever that content is. And that your passion should be in your proposal. We should see like how passionate you are about this idea. Know the why of your project. Why should it be funded? How will it benefit the community? Use proper grammar and articulate your ideas in clear, concise language. Definitely spell check. Definitely have somebody read it over. You know, try not to type how you type in a text. I don't know. I guess I would just say that. Even if you're denied once, you should apply again and again. And I say this because we had 90 applicants last year and we can only select 15. But that 16th or 17th person may get selected next year. So I don't ever want an artist thinking, oh gosh, I wasn't selected. This is why we give you an artist membership. We do a member show every year. We want artists to show here. There's other ways to tie into what we're doing. We always send out artist opportunities. So maybe you didn't get it this year, but you might get it next year. So, and maybe we just need to fine tune your proposal again if you don't get it this year. So that's one thing that I really want to like hammer home. Tricks, do your research. Look at the reviewers. What do they like? What do they do? Are they artists? What interests them? Maybe what you're doing really is going to speak to one of them. So, you know, this is just something I do when I'm looking. It doesn't mean you have to know everything about the reviewer. I'm just saying it doesn't hurt. If you're having trouble writing your proposal, but you're better at talking about your idea, have a friend video you and then use that video as, you know, transcribe it. And that way you have some things that you can write down if you're somebody that's having trouble writing. And then for artist statements, read other artist statements. I do it all the time. What do you like? What do you think works? What don't you like? And then that's how you can help sort of tailor your own artist statement, is if you're looking at other people's. When crafting a project, respond accurately to the narrative questions. So if it's a question that has multiple parts, make sure that you are answering all parts of the question. I don't think we have any questions like that anymore on our application, but this is just in general. If you're applying for other residencies or other projects, just make sure that you are looking at the narrative and answering all of the parts of that question. Avoid unnecessary repetition, maintain clarity and focus. And then, of course, ensure you submit your proposal well before the deadline to avoid last-minute rush and potential errors. I can't even tell you how many artists last year emailed me at 1 o'clock in the morning to tell me they couldn't submit their proposal because it was closed. Probably they said there were errors, and I'm sure maybe it was just a last minute thing. Maybe there were errors, but that's the thing. If you don't wait to the last minute and there are errors, you can let me know. But at 1 a.m., I will tell you it's not best practice to email somebody that will potentially have to work with you on a timeline in the future. So that doesn't really look good from a time management perspective when you're submitting your proposal late. I'm also somebody who's last minute. So I say this also knowing that I am the last minute submitter of many, many things. But the best practice is I try to submit the day before it's due. So think about it that way. Here is information. You can email us directly if you want. It's always just our first name, PITA, PITA at akronsoultrain.org, or Meryl, MERYL at akronsoultrain.org, or you can just email info@akronsoultrain.org. That goes to both of us. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out and schedule some time to go over your proposal with us. If you are interested in support, we're here to help you. We definitely want to do that. So I do want to give us some time. Let me stop sharing my screen. I know I kind of flew through that, I feel like. I want to give us some time. I'm going to go ahead and
Start video.
I'm going to stop the recording here. Okay.